ready?
Here we go.
She's always late, Louie.
So, right on.
Go.
Karibu, which means welcome in Swahili. Phyllis asked me to do this a while back, and it's kind of formal for an informal situation. But just to give you an idea, I'm Sherry Corbett, and I started going on a safari in 1981. And all these pictures, this is sort of a blast from the past. These pictures are all from 40 years ago, as is everything that you're going to see on the screen. And in those days, you carried 11 pounds worth of Canon, long lens and wide angle. And the last time I went, which was 2012, I took a little Sony for $115, and it had a Zeiss lens, and the photographs are fabulous. So I got involved, and when I got there, we met through Sir Charles Markham. He was working for A&K, and the person who was supposed to be on safari with us was not there. And he got somebody named Malcolm Oliver Mason, and he was known really as Perry Mason. That's what you see, the Perry Mason safaris. And he came by that quite naturally in that he was British. He came down, he was Royal Horse Artillery, King's Troop, which carried, pulled the cannon, the gun, sorry, not a cannon, the gun, for the Queen's birthday and that kind of thing. So he came down to fight the Mau Mau, save the empire. And he stayed and joined a paramilitary group, which was called the Kenya Police. And he then became a professional hunter. And then when hunting stopped in 1977, September of 77, he just did bird shooting and photography safaris. He did not want to get more involved and go down to Tanzania like a lot of the hunters did. So that's how he got involved. And then he became very active in the Kenya Wildlife Services. He was a top shooter. He was number 2 for the country of Kenya in Bisley, which is world champions. And so they used him for that. And that was for anti-poaching. And poaching was just getting started. But when he was in the military, he became the jailer for Jomo Kenyatta, who became the president, and he was a brilliant man, and they became very dear friends. So when Kenyatta got out of jail, Kenyatta was a Mau Mau. When he got out of jail, they became good friends, and Perry taught him all about racing, horse racing. So Kenyatta wound up owning a string of race horses, and they went to the races every Sunday together. That's who I work for, and that's why you see Perry Mason. Whoops.
Go ahead, click once.
There is the country of Kenya. I've got better here. This is an old map, and that is 4 years old. This is what Nairobi looked like then. Now it looks like New York City. There's nothing but tall buildings, and you even see tall buildings and stuff outside and going north because China has pretty much taken over. It's over 50% Chinese. They have bought a lot of the travel agency kind of things. They've bought some of the hotels, and they're building like crazy. So now that's a totally different thing. This is where you started for safaris in the old days, and even when we were doing it. And it's the Norfolk Hotel, the good old Norfolk Hotel. And when Teddy Roosevelt was over there after his presidency, that's where he took off for his safari. And that was the biggest safari ever. I don't know how many bearers they had, but like 70 people, and he was gone for months. So that's where you took off from. And when you look at the vehicle, it was an old Land Cruiser. We never used anything but Land Cruisers.
No,
I'm in your way. No, I can't do that. So that's what the Land Cruiser did. There's Perry, and then that's a Maasai. You notice he's got a spear. And that's how they protect themselves, and you as well. So that gives you an idea.
He's standing right in front of the...
And you can move
back.
You can move over a little. Whoops.
Come on, here.
Why don't you move?
Okay, in the middle.
So,
I'll move back this way.
I
so,
was just gonna say, come over here and I'll go over there.
No,
so I just keep
this
going.
is better.
So basically, this is just an elephant, you know that. A leopard, and now we have a baby leopard,
Oh, cute.
and they are cute. They have kind of blue eyes when they're born. And I'm gonna tell you about a trip that I took when I was first there to learn about the area. I went up to Lake Baringo, and so we drove up there, and then of course when you're there, those are crocodiles that are freshwater, and they're all over everywhere, and people just step over them. I sort of went, I don't think I'm gonna do that. So then when we got in the vehicle and we were gonna go to Lewa Conservancy, which maybe you've heard about, we started out and my first remark was, you know where you're going, because it's just a path, there's nothing. So you're really out in the bush, and the Matthews Range is on your left, which is a big mountain range. And all of a sudden there is a military man with a rifle, and he's got pressed, slacks on, and his jacket and his hat. And Perry said, you know, you have to stop and pick him up, he's military. And I said, well, yeah, okay. So we stopped and picked him up, and we said, where are you going? He said, I am going further, but tell me where you're going. So we told him, he said, that'll get me fairly close. He said, I'm after a man-eating lion. He's killed 5 people in 2 different villages. I thought, oh, so, things are a little wilder than I thought. Well, also I was worried because I've never driven 5 on the floor. And I said, well, what happens, something happens to you? He said, I'm 44, what's gonna happen to me? I said, who knows? He said, you would learn to shift real fast and get out of here. Because otherwise you just bake in one of those vehicles. Now this area is the Ark. Now you've been to Africa, maybe you've been to the Ark or treetops. What's unusual about this is that the mixture of animals. And that's usually one group comes in another. So now you've got a Cape buffalo and elephant. And then if you look in the distance, we've got a lioness coming in looking at a ham sandwich. It's really a warthog, which is big. And she's sneaking in on them. And then in the back, you see this elephant's thing. I'm coming in, and look, he's going out the other way. And then the elephant says, okay, you guys get out of my way. so it's a male and some of the babies. But, so that's Lewa. Lewa Conservancy is near the Ark. And that area is the Northern Frontier District, which is quite, it sounds romantic, it is, it's very dry. It's up towards the Ethiopian border. There's been a lot of border problems there, and the last time I was there, actually, I was out by myself with the driver, and I saw fire in 4 different places. I said, I think there's a problem. So we went back and we told them, and they said, uh-oh. So we went and had to take all the wool blankets off all of the beds, hosed them down, and took them out, and that's how we put out the fires. So now that's where Prince William was. When he was, you heard that he was in Africa, and then he took somebody with him, which is actually turned out to be his wife later. So he would be there, and he worked there in the summers because he knew the Craig family, which are a lovely family. So you saw the Ark, and then that just this is up in the northern part. That's a dik-dik. This is from the Mar. That is a regular zebra. I'll show you another. Masked weaver or elephant. This is northern, this is a Somali. The northern area has different animals because it's so dry. And this is one of them. This is a Somali ostrich. That's a terrible picture. But anyway, it's a carmine bee eater.
Oh.
This is lunch. And actually, I can tell you that male did not get that zebra. The females do.
Oh.
The females do all the hunting. The males come in, what else is new? And then the females come in, and then the cubs. So the cubs eat. And there he is again. But that's a good looking black maned lion. They're hard to come by now. That's just a genet cat. Mount Kenya Safari Club, if you've been there, it's now owned by Fairmont, and it's changed tremendously. The last time I was there, because Perry was a hunter and the hunters had their own room. And he said, well, what's happening? He said, well, we're closing it tomorrow forever. And he said, well, that's really sad. They said, would you like to have dinner in there? So they brought champagne, put fire in the fireplace, and brought a beautiful dinner. Then they closed it. That was it. So everything's changing all over the world. That's the Ark. So that's where we saw some of the animals. That again is some of the cottages at the Mount Kenya Safari Club. They're still there. And the Aberdares and Mount Kenya is in that. Now this is in the Mara, and this is how this is really old, because now today they're quite nicer looking things, but this is where you ate outside. He was not invited, actually. And he did this frequently. And but if you notice, that beer is a Tusker beer. And I even have another picture of him with the Tusker beer right in front of him. But he came in every day. But you got out of his way, obviously. So it was rather unusual. And that's the old tents in the old days, and that your paraffin lamps are in that little thing that you see in front. And look how old-fashioned that is. I don't know, when were you there?
I'm trying to think how long ago it was. It had to be,
80s? This is all 80s and 90s.
no, this is later than that, maybe 95, 98.
Well, because it's certainly gotten fancier. And now that's unusual to see this, because now they've lost 70% of the elephants in the northern frontier district. And all that is going out, going down to Mombasa and going out to China. All the ivory, that's what they're after. It's kind of sad. He looks like he's got indigestion. There's still quite a few leopards around. When I actually went to Sangari Rand, I had my friends with me, and Perry said, would you please unlock the gate? Because now that's about a 40,000 acre place, beautiful. And we were gonna go do horseback riding, some people were. So he said, here, take the thing and unlock the gate. So I took the key, and he said, I've got you covered. And I said, why? And he said, because a lot of leopard. And I looked, and he's standing there with a rifle. I thought, well, then just keep your eyes open. But it was that, a couple weeks later, we had a client there who said, such wonderful staff, because they cook with wood, and they cook in the ground. They put things in pots in the ground and that kind of thing. And he said, because I went out to go to the loo, the loo was right behind that tent, and he said, and they stopped, sawing the wood down for making, obviously, breakfast, fire. And of course, really what it was a leopard. A leopard sounds very much like somebody sawing wood. Nobody ever told him the difference, but we figured that out. Hyena, or lion. That's the northern zebra. That's a Grevy's zebra. And this is the migration. And I've got pictures up here. I took all these pictures, and then I took all of the ones that are here. These are all old. And then that's with the old cameras. But that's still going on. That's one of the few things that's still the same. And they're still crossing, and so going into Tanzania. The Masai Mara is the northern extension of the Serengeti. So they're going back and forth following the food supply, which is basically the grasses. And that's a colobus monkey. You only find that in the and you can see it, that long tail, all fluffy.
Oh, yeah.
And this animal kills more people than anybody else. I just contacted somebody, I have some of his artwork. His name is Simon Coombs, and he just simply was showing people around at lunchtime, and out of nowhere, one of these came at him, and that was the end of it. I think he looks like he needs a dentist.
And what are those called? Water buffaloes?
No, that was a hippo.
A hippo,
Hippopotamus. Okay. And this is one of the...
No, the one before that.
That's the hippo.
Yeah, but the one before.
Well, one before that. That one.
A Cape buffalo.
Cape.
We don't have water buffalo.
Okay.
It's a Cape buffalo. And that thing across here is called a boss.
A what?
A boss. That's the horn. and you measure for a good one, like if you're hunting, you measure, it has to be 52 inches from
End
tip to
end,
tip
yeah.
of their horns.
So you go up to measure them before you shoot it?
Yeah.
And you run like crazy.
Yeah, when you measure. Now, this particular cheetah has had a history of having a couple of them. The last one group that she had were 3 males, and they all stayed together for years. There they are, some more. These are being poached now for meat. That's a ground hornbill. That's a Vandendecken hornbill. You begin to learn about the birds when you've been there a couple of times, and next thing you start to look at is dung beetles and things like that. So, that's just sort of the same. And a lot of people take the balloon rides. And the Samburu dancers. Samburu were part of the Maasai tribe. And these are gone. This is the prehensile, this is the black rhino. They're gone for their horn, and what's happening now is they're taking the horn off. And so the last time I was there, I thought that, really, it's too bad. But that's because they're using the horn for aphrodisiac. And the Yemenites used to use them for ceremonial swords, but the Yemenites haven't been coming into Kenya for many years. And that little guy went down to visit the Pope. He was only 3 days old when I took that picture. And then the Pope came in 4 months later, and he was put on a plane to take down. But that's so unusual. Now, I understand, somebody said they've seen one in the Mara recently, so maybe they're coming back, who knows. Impala, and there's no snow on Mount Kilimanjaro anymore. Global warming. These are our hunting dogs. And this is unusual, but there are certain areas where you will find the lions looking in the baboons, and more lunch. I'm sorry. That's the grubby. And that's about it. That was my favorite plane, and so you're older than I am. It's 84 years old. And the last time I went on it, everything moved. The wings went like this, and the seats went like this. But it was wonderful. Yeah, I do have a lot of stories, but you have to sort of, I can't think of all of them. But it's been a wonderful experience, and I was lucky to do it, and I did it for many years. And right now, everything's shut down. I was just talking to them, and they've shut down everything. There's no planes coming in and no planes going out. And because of it, the animals are having a wonderful time romping through all the camps. So yes.
I understand that the movie Out of Africa is going to be shown Sunday afternoon on Odyssey at 63. And I was wondering, because of you're giving us your experience back in the 70s, 80s.
They were there.
And was it realistic, that movie?
Everything was filmed there.
But was it a good direction that you could, as a viewer,
Yes.
look at the country and the trees?
Yes, and believe me, it's pretty true.
Yeah.
That was Isaac Dynaston and Dennis Finch Hatton, and actually I worked for his nephew, Rupert Finch Hatton, when I did some stuff there. But when they came there, Meryl Streep got very involved, and she rented a house and put her daughter in the band to school, and was very involved in the community. Robert Redford flew in and flew out. And the other person I didn't tell you about, but it's Beryl Markham.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
I met her, she lived next door to Perry, and they all lived near the race course because they were all big horse people. And I was waiting for Perry, and I was at the race course, and I thought, I wonder where he is. So I went to get out of the vehicle. When I did, there was a dog baboon, a big male, went like that with those teeth, and some females behind him, and I'm kind of like this. And with that, this old Mercedes flies around this older lady, probably my age now, whatever, she was older, tall, thin. She said, what's wrong with you that you're hanging onto the vehicle? I said, look over there. And she said, so? I thought, I bet this is Beryl Markham, and it was. And she said, I said, I'm waiting for Perry Mason. She said, I always know where Perry is. And she said, but now watch. And with that, she went like this and took a handful of stones and went boom. And of course, they took off. And she said, now don't you think that's odd that they've never thrown anything back? But she was a character. When they were having a coup in 1982, she went out through the gate because it was gated, and because of the race course. She went out through the gate and they said, you can't go out, there's a coup. She said, I could care less. She arrived at the Mathega Club with 6 bullet holes in her vehicle. And so they got her in there and they said, we've taken your keys away, you are not going anywhere. She was furious. She was furious. She was a wild child and she was a wild adult. And actually she always had a little stipend from the Queen, and she did have a baby, and he was probably about 3 when he went to England. And apparently that it was said to be the Prince of Wales child, but Perry did say every month she did get something for the Queen for all her life, so she didn't want nothing to do with being a mother.
Did
So.
she have the affair with Dennis Finch Hatton?
Yes,
Yeah, after.
yes. But
That
Isaac
whole
Dinah
thing's a
said,
wonderful story, though.
and it's true, it's all true. And I met Sir Charles Markham, and so he said, Beryl Markham taught me everything I know. She was married to his brother. It was a wild crowd. It was also called Happy Valley. The Happy Valley crowd. What it was the second sons had the money but no title. So they all went down there and they're all wild as March hares. They really were. But there's a lot of books, and I've got a lot of them, about the whole, that whole Happy Valley crowd. The Earl of Earl, he was murdered. But Beryl Markham was something else. And Jonathan Scott, if you watch television and watch The Big Cat Diary, I remember when he was first there, this first year, he was out in the tent and he came over and he said, Perry, I don't know, I've just got a terrible problem. This cobra keeps getting in my tent. And what do I do about it? And he said, well, are you zipping it up when you leave? And he said, not really. He said, well, why don't you start there? So, and of course, he's gone on to make a lot of money and do very well and do great photography. And that's who it is, was Jonathan Scott. I'm trying to think if I missed anybody. We did have a lot of equestrians go over there. Sunday Smith, Olympian, and Lucinda Green, she went with us because that horsey crowd sort of sticks together. And I said, well, you're taking her up to Sangari, they've got those nice little Somali ponies. He said, she's in the Olympics, she's a 100 jumper, I don't think she wants that. So with that, we got some thoroughbreds and we took them up there for her. So a small group, we only had four people in a vehicle, and at 8 was the pretty much top of us was a family. And one family is out here now in Harbor Ridge. And they took their 3 little girls. But one was very young, but we accepted her anyway, because it's just the family. And Perry looked out and he froze. She was only about 7. It's the youngest we've ever taken anybody. And she's going, hi, and it's an elephant. So Perry said, the family's standing there like in shock. So he said, I ran out, and they told me the story actually. He never told me. I heard it after I got up here. He grabbed her like this and just ran. So that's why we didn't take small children.
What about a future trip?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's too dangerous. The building going on up north is depressing. And I've been told with the fact that there's so many of the elephants and everything you knew. But right now there's nothing flying in and out. It's totally shut down. I just talked to a gal who, Eric Grammaticus built that. And he built all those tented camps, Governors, El Moran, Little Governors, Ladia. And when he built them, he said to Perry, he said, do you think this would be a good place for a tented camp? And he said, no, it wouldn't be. Of course, it turned out to be Governor's Camp. It turned out to be very successful. But it was Eric Grammaticus that said to Perry, then you see how rough it is, or how fast the river is. So he jumped in and swam across. And Erin Madison said, I didn't expect you to do that, but, but that's all, she said to me the other day that, there's nobody going in there, and if they're getting anybody, they're gonna open 1 or 2 camps, and it'll just be for people who are local, but she said it'll be interesting to see what the pricing's gonna be, whether we can do it. So, do you have any stories you'd like to tell?
Sherry, a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
What was the cost of in the length of time for a safari?
Basically, you couldn't do it less than 12 days, really, because when you came in, we put you up at the Norfolk for a night, because you need to get acclimated, and otherwise you're just not taking advantage of it. And in those days, all the big companies were doing, day 1 was New York, day 2 was London, day 3, which was the first of the safari. So when you got there, you had 7 or 8 days.
Yeah.
So we did day 1 was when you were in Nairobi and out on safari.
And how much did it cost, the average?
In those
back
days,
then?
it was
And-
200, 175 to 200. Now it's about 1,500 to 2,000 per person per day.
Per day.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it was 175. I just went and I looked at some of the old bills. And, oh, that was a bargain.
yeah.
Sherry,
40 years.
what were the living arrangements like on safari? My daughter went on one about 5 years ago, and it was luxurious.
Well, it is. All those tented camps are wonderful, and like Il Moran is private, so there's only like 7. And that's when you get people who don't, want other people around, but it was lovely. And those tents are beautifully appointed. Some of them have, the big old-fashioned British tubs in them, big beds and beautiful, they're beautifully appointed.
But how about when you went on safari?
That, you saw what that looked like.
Okay.
And then Leyva Conservancy, where Prince William went, and actually he just went back, he's been back there quite a bit. When they built some areas, and they are so gorgeous. But when I went, it was an old tent with the loo in the back. And I thought, well, when I did go out and I saw a steaming thing of leftover from an elephant, I thought, well, he must be pretty close. And I was not too happy, so I thought, I'm not doing this again. So I stayed in my tent. But then they made beautiful, beautiful rondavels, and they're all handmade furniture. And if you go Leyva Conservancy and you go on the lodges, you should see them. And I've been in a lot of them. That's where I stay. So, and the food is wonderful. They raise their own vegetables, and they have their own sheep, and the wonderful sheep. Actually, when it became a conservancy, Mrs. Craig said, well, I don't care what it is. That leopard has taken some of my sheep, or goats rather, it was goat. And that's going to be the end of him. They said, we can't shoot him, it's a conservancy now. Well, that night she got him. So nobody was telling her. And she wrote a wonderful book that was called From Ox Cart to Emails.
Oh, okay.
And that's exactly what those people saw. And they still own it. And Kuki Gallman just wrote the book I Dreamed of Africa. Now, things are getting a little hot up there, and she was shocked. She's recovering. But that's what's happening right now in South Africa. They're killing the white farmers. And they did that in Zimbabwe. When I flew through there, we had an emergency landing to pick up some people who were fleeing. That was 82 or something. That was what Smith got out. I have a book that Robin Moore wrote. You'd be interested in this. It was never published. It could never be published in this country or in England or anywhere because it named names. So the FBI took it from me, and they kept it for 3 years. And they brought it back. I said, you could have at least been more careful. They put it back together with duct tape.
Oh,
So, but it's a very interesting book, and it never was published, but I have, they had a couple of copies. Robin Moore wrote The French Connection and a lot of those things. Movie.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it's a fascinating country. I don't know how long it's going to continue to stay the way it is. From just looking at it the other day, the Conservancy that I don't know, which was Lord Delamere's property, I saw big cranes in the background. And I'm not talking about birds. So, and I know there's a couple of railroads going up there after all the minerals, in the northern part.
Is it being built by the Chinese?
The railroads were built by China, well, actually, the
A lot of
Kenyans,
the roads too.
the roads, well, the roads, but they built the railroad. They lent the money to the Kenyans and they asked for it back, the money back, and they couldn't afford it, so finally, we'll take the railroad. They put 2 highways through, north and south, but that's because they're after taking everything out from up there on the northern part. And they also are actually the ones that, they've been found with all the guns and helicopters coming in from Somalia for doing the poaching. So that's, but they're going through Savo East. The train is going through Savo East and through Nairobi National Park. So that tells you how much they care about what they've got. They're doing it really to get people out of their country, and they did the same to Tanzania. So it's a whole changed world.
So we're very
I think we were
fortunate.
fortunate to go when we did.
Yeah.
Very fortunate that I did, and I did it so much, and it was wonderful. And to me, my mother, being from a medical family, my mother said, "What did you do to help people near there?" I said, "Well, I wasn't, now there's somebody here, we'll be tomorrow, who are missionaries there, that's the Shis, and what they did was fabulous, because they were doing, eyes. But my feeling was, when you're bringing people in, you're bringing something to that country. And people, because that one man is supporting probably 18 people. He's the one that's working. And I've discovered that in the Mara, from meeting some of the tribes people. Because they know Perry, because he's been there as hunter, and they actually came and got him a couple times when I was there with them, saying, we've got to come, we've got a downed animal or a snared animal, and he would put them out of their misery. And so then you got to know some of the families. So I felt that I was bringing some money into their country, and now nothing's happening, and they went from 4.5 million in 81 to 45 million now. So they can't support themselves or feed themselves. So it's kind of a depressing end. But I was very lucky, and this is really a blast from the past. It really is memories, because somebody yesterday said, "Oh, I'm going to go home and get out all my pictures and put them together." So it was a good thing for her too, to see all this. It was fun. It was fun.
Very nice.